Hello friends, welcome to our channel. If you're looking for a place to relax after a busy day, where you can share your emotions and communicate with people who understand you, then you've come to the right place. Here you can always find new and interesting content about human relationships, the peculiarities of family relationships, touching stories, and much more. Before we begin, like this video and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And so let's go. A little girl was very close to her grandmother. She would often spend the night with her, and they would talk for hours about various topics. One night, the little girl noticed that her grandmother looked unwell. Although she tried to hide it, the child could tell that something was wrong. The old woman was very weak and barely ate dinner. She only drank some tea and went straight to bed. The child sat with her all night long and didn't let her do anything on her own. In the morning, the little girl's parents came to visit their mother. They were very worried about her, but she reassured them that everything was fine. However, when the next evening came, the grandmother became even weaker and she stopped talking altogether. The little girl understood that her beloved grandmother might die, and she was very scared. Nevertheless, she stayed by her side all night long. The next morning, the old woman's children once again tried to persuade their daughter to take a break from sitting by the bedside, but she refused to leave. At some point, the grandmother opened her eyes and looked at the child. She smiled and said that she was very proud of her. Then she asked for forgiveness for not being able to play with her more often. After that, she closed her eyes again and fell silent. About an hour passed like this, and the little girl began to get a little scared. She felt that her grandmother's soul was leaving her body. Suddenly, her grandmother opened her eyes and beckoned with her finger for the child to come closer. The little girl did as she was told. Her grandmother reached out to her and caressed her cheek. She told the child that she loved her very much, adding that she would become an excellent person. "You are kind and smart, and you will have many friends," said the grandmother. The little girl nodded her head obediently and hugged her grandmother. Then the old woman continued, "When I'm gone, you won't feel lonely. You'll be surrounded by loving people who will always help you." The little girl listened attentively to every word her grandmother said. She understood perfectly well what the conversation was about, because she had often heard these kinds of conversations between adults before. She knew exactly what it meant when her grandmother said she wouldn't be around anymore. At some point, the grandmother suddenly got very scared and grabbed the child's hand. She held it so tightly that it hurt a little, but the little girl didn't even whimper. She understood how important it was for her grandmother in that moment. The old woman squeezed her hand a few more times and then slowly closed her eyes forever. For a moment, the little girl just kept holding her grandmother's hand. She didn't want to believe that she was really gone. When her parents approached her and tried to take her away, she started crying. She didn't want her grandmother to die. She wanted to spend the rest of her life with her, just like her grandmother wanted to spend it with her. The little girl's parents were very upset about what had happened. They were crying too, but they tried to pull themselves together quickly. After all, they had to take care of their daughter and support her in this difficult moment. They knew how close she was to her grandmother, and they also understood that it would be very painful for her to see her parents crying. Over time, the pain subsided and the little girl calmed down. She still missed her grandmother very much, but she understood that there was no point in being sad about it. Her grandmother was now in a better place, and she would often visit her there. At least that's what her parents told her. As the days went by, the wound in the girl's heart began to heal. However, she still couldn't understand why her grandmother had died. After all, she was still very young and healthy. Why did she have to leave so early? Once she asked her parents about it, and they said that sometimes it happens, and there's nothing you can do about it. The little girl didn't believe them, though. She thought that the doctors were to blame, since they hadn't been able to save her grandmother. One day, the girl's mother found her playing in the yard with other children. She was having fun, running and jumping like any other child. Suddenly, the girl stopped. She stood still and said loudly, "I know why my grandmother died." Everyone around her looked at her in surprise. They didn't expect such a statement from the little girl. "It's all because I didn't listen to my grandmother. She told me that if I played less and read more, I wouldn't grow up to be an interesting person, so that's why she left me. She wanted to teach me a lesson," the girl said sadly. All the children looked down. They too had often disobeyed their grandmothers and grandfathers, and therefore understood perfectly well how the girl felt. Her mother approached her, sat her down on a nearby bench, and said, "You know, your grandmother loved you very much, and she would never leave you because of something like this. No one can say exactly why she died, but I think she simply completed her earthly mission. She lived a good, long life and is now resting peacefully." The girl nodded her head obediently. She knew that her mother was telling the truth. From that moment on, she decided to carry on her grandmother's traditions. She began to read more books, help her parents more often, and be kinder to others. She missed her grandmother very much, but she knew that her grandmother would be very proud of her now. One day, the girl was reading a book when she suddenly heard a voice saying, "Stop, stop, child, and listen to me." Startled, the girl dropped the book and turned around to look for the speaker. "Who's there?" She called out, but there was no answer. The girl thought it was probably just her imagination playing tricks on her, and so she went back to her book. However, a minute later, the voice spoke again. I said, "Stop, child. Stop and listen to me." The girl jumped up from the table and ran to the window. Perhaps the voice belonged to someone outside. But when she looked out into the street, she saw nothing unusual. The voice continued to call to her, and it sounded exactly like her grandmother's voice. The girl couldn't understand what was happening. Had her grandmother come back to visit her? She wished with all her might for her grandmother to appear before her, and suddenly a miracle happened. Right before her eyes, the old woman materialized in the room. She looked just as she had when she was alive. The girl couldn't hold back her tears and rushed to hug her grandmother. The old woman was very surprised to see that her granddaughter had grown up to be such a beautiful girl. She stroked her hair and said that she was very proud of her. The little girl asked her grandmother a million questions about where she had been all this time and why she had only appeared now. The old woman smiled mysteriously and said that it was a secret between her and the girl. "I'm only here for a short time, so let's spend it together," the grandmother said. The girl agreed and spent the whole day talking to her grandmother. She told her everything about her life, about school, her friends, and how much she missed her. The grandmother listened patiently to all this, occasionally asking some questions. When evening came, the old woman said it was time for her to leave. She hugged the girl and said, "Don't be sad, my dear. I'll be with you whenever you need me. You just have to close your eyes and think of me, and I'll always hear you." The girl nodded obediently, although tears welled up in her eyes. She watched as her grandmother slowly began to dissolve right before her eyes. At first, the old woman's body became transparent and blurry, and then she completely disappeared. The girl understood that her grandmother had returned to heaven. Although she missed her very much, she knew that she had to be happy for her. After all, she was now in a better place, where there was no more pain, sadness, or death. Love is the only thing that never truly dies. Friends, what do you think about this story? What would you do if you were in this situation? Be sure to share your thoughts in the comments below. We wish you all the best. Goodbye.